Welcome in to episode number 126 of Dynasty Decisions. We've been doing this series for so long, and we are now making a little bit of a change to it. Instead of the submission form that you guys were submitting to before, we are now making use of the resource we have, which is the Flock Fantasy My Teams feature, which is a free feature where you can load in your team and see the team graph, how our expert rankings basically rank your teams and your league mates team, but you can also submit your teams for review. So what we're doing is now prioritizing the paid submissions that we get for this, but because we're transitioning over to this new format, we're going to be firing out a couple of free vouchers per episode. So if you guys are Flock Fantasy site subscribers, drop your Flock username down below in the pinned comment down below. Even if you're not a paid subscriber, if you just did your free trial or something like that, drop your Flock username down below and we'll send out some free vouchers as we get this transitioned. But you guys will see this is a much better format.
Yeah, and there's a couple of reasons why. First and foremost, I do think from a back-end perspective for us, it's a lot easier to track the teams, whereas the Google form that we had at times was a lot harder to track, I will say. The second thing, and it's just a lot better for you guys. We can realistically go into your league, not just make generalizations about player offers, but specifically, for example, if we say, generally go buy a player like Drake London and he's on a top-end contending team, that's probably not going to fly. So we can basically exact this advice more so to your league than make general assumptions based off the format of your own respective team structure.
Yeah, exactly. So the My Teams feature, again, it is free to use. If you want to go use it, you can use our expert rankings based on that. See how your team stacks up to the rest of your league. Let's get this thing going with Poot Juice, the first team that we're talking about here. His team is JRob94. So you can see the My Teams feature ranks them based on my rankings, Danny's rankings, Domain Guy's rankings, Mason's rankings, and the Land Guy's rankings as the fourth best team in the league. And you can see here basically that we have the team format at the bottom, Dynasty 2 quarterback, 12 team start 11 PPR, full tight end premium. And you can see his entire team here. Drake May, Trevor Lawrence, Michael Penix, Najee Harris, running back wise, Jalen Wright, Jonathan Brooks, a little bit weaker there, but he does have the third best wide receiver core and third best tight end core in the league. Marvin Harrison, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zay Flowers, Romo Dunze. You guys can see everybody on the screen there. So it is a pretty well-built team. You got a pretty strong roster minus the running back position. And he did have a couple major questions here. He said 12 team super flex tight end premium. Tight ends get 2 points per reception. So it is a very, very high tight end premium in this league. So good that he has Sam Laporta. And he's basically asking kind of stick and pick at his draft picks. Try and move capital to make a run this year. He said he was leaning house money this year, but he would love a second opinion.
Yeah, and I do think the important context for this league is that it is a best ball league. So although you don't necessarily have any true hammer, I would say at this point at the running back wide receiver position, like I would say, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith and Jigba specifically are trending towards potentially becoming that, but you don't have like a CeeDee Lamb anchoring the top there, or you don't have like a Bijan Robinson anchoring the top of your running back core. But given the best ball format, you're kind of just playing into the volatility of your flex positions and having at the onesie spots true anchors that you can rely upon, like Sam Laporta, like that quarterback core. I do think you have a good shell of a best ball team, especially knowing it is a start 11 where depth does matter a good amount more. Given the best ball setting here, you kind of lean into that volatility. In terms of, potential direction, you mentioned, is this a house money team? Would you kind of push your chips in? Kind of what you would accomplish with this team? And right off the bat, I think you're in a good spot to really see how the start of the year goes, knowing that you have 3 2026 ones to be able to play with. If you do want to make a big time purchase at that point, obviously you have that fluidity, that flexibility, that liquidity with the draft capital that you have. But it's not something that I would necessarily want to push over the envelope until I actually see some signs.
Yeah, and here's the benefit of us doing this on here versus the way we were doing it before. So he has his own first. He has B Hallett 5 and MJ Walsh's first. So B Hallett 5 looks like he has a very competitive team. He's probably going to have a mid to late first. And then MJ Walsh's team looks like, it's
a little
decent,
volatile,
but it's a little bit more volatile. So I would say that maybe projects to be your better first round pick between your own, the other guys and that one. So one thing that I would maybe consider doing, because he also is asking kind of like what he should do with his current rookie picks, the 108 and the 204. Obviously your biggest need is running back. At 108, you should have one of the Quinshon Judkins, Trevion Henderson, Caleb Johnson, probably not Omarion Hampton or Genty, but you should have one of those guys there for you. And then at the 204, maybe you're looking at Cam Scadaboo got a good landing spot, or maybe Byshell Tootin got a good landing spot in draft capital. Dylan Sampson, Devin Neal, somebody like that. I would ideally want to come out of this rookie draft with 2 running backs. But at the same time, you never know what the board's going to fall to you. What if Emeka Egbuka, 20th overall to the Denver Broncos, is staring you in the face at 108 or something like that? You got to be flexible with those picks. But I do think, given the strength of this class, given the picks that you have, you should be able to walk away with 2 running backs. And given that we don't really love the 2026 class at this point in time, I would say that mid to late projected first, whether it's your own or B. Hallett's there, you could hypothetically make a move even before the season if you wanted to go out and purchase a running back. And again, we can actually take a look at specifically which running back.
Let's look at some of the bottom teams because, like, for example, that team at the bottom, go to the team that has Saquon. Outside of Saquon, Nico, and Brock Purdy, I mean, I guess like that's probably a competitive team, like just getting out of their contending window. So maybe they want to run it back one more year, but if you could convince that guy, hey, listen, like after this year, your team might be in a really tough spot, I would be willing to buy Saquon Barkley off you for the 108 plus the 204. If that gets you Saquon Barkley, I'd be willing to do that, even in a best ball format where you typically want the the higher quantity of assets because they can fill into your lineup. In that specific scenario, if that guy's willing to give you at least a solid price on Saquon Barkley, again, doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, you're stealing from him because his team's in such a bad spot. But again, 108 plus 204, maybe he wants a little bit more juice on top. I'd be willing to venture down that path as well.
Yeah, and maybe because he has 2 1s this year already, he's thinking more towards the future. He's being proactive. Maybe you can get it done for one of those 26 1s plus the 204 and not have to give up your 108, and you're able to still spend that on a Quinshon Judkins or something like that. That would definitely make some sense. This guy is Chase Brown and not a whole lot else at running back. Maybe you could buy Chase Brown for that 20. Like, would you pay one of those mid to late projected 26 1s for Chase Brown right now?
No, I would want to wait until after the NFL draft just to make sure that since he doesn't add a big time piece, but assuming he's going with the same type of expected workload that we do have at this point, I'd be willing to give up a mid to late first rounder in 2026 for him. Yes.
If he's willing to do it now, I'd almost be willing to take the risk because he might tell you in trade negotiations, hey, if Chase Brown doesn't have a running back added, I'm not willing to make this trade anymore.
Is he real? Is this guy respectively really in a position to wait on selling a running back?
Probably not. You're probably right.
Yeah. So,
but anyways, yeah, you have a couple of options, couple of avenues that you can go and attack the running back position. As far as your wide receiver core, like, one thing I actually a little bit disagree with you on is, he doesn't have any hammers right now. I think Harrison and JSN definitely can be that. And I love his depth receivers, man. Like, think about how many good weeks you're going to get out of Zay Flowers, Rome Odunze, Josh Downs, Jalen McMillan. Rashid Shaheed was one of the best ball picks that you could have had last year. Even in Jalen Coker, Dontavian Wicks, like even some of these deeper names. Josh Palmer's on the Bills now. Like, you're going to get weeks out of these guys.
I don't disagree. I think it's a strong core in numbers. I'm just saying, like, if he had like one other like high-end CD Lamb type on this team, or Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, like it would almost be like the perfect wide receiver core is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, you're in great shape with this team. You have the quarterbacks. They're young, obviously, so you got to project a little bit, but I think your assessment of, I'm probably a little bit more of a house money team this year because I have Drake May, Trevor Lawrence, Michael Penix as my quarterbacks. They're all younger quarterbacks, maybe not quite in their prime, specifically with May and Penix yet. Kind of wait and see what it looks like. I would get creative with those 26 1s if you can. Maybe you want to do that before the year if there's a buying window. Maybe you want to do that during the year because you start 6-1 or something like that. That would be ideal for sure. Yeah. But I think given that maybe your league mates don't know much about the 26 class yet, that's the only reason why I'd be actually willing to do it over the next few months, potentially, before people learn that maybe those picks aren't super valuable.
Yeah, and that's fair. And I mean, for example, if you do actually go back to the guy with Saquon Barkley, it does look like he had J-Rob's pick this year, and that pick ended up being the 102. So you could even play the psychological card, say, hey, my pick was 102 last year. I have my pick again this year. Like, what on top of my 2026 will get you Barkley? And if this guy already, quote unquote, enjoyed the fruits of your pick getting to the 102, maybe he thinks that's more on the mid end rather than the potential high end pick that, or a low end pick that it might end up being because your team just completely outperforms expectations, which I definitely think is in the range of outcomes with the build that you have.
Yeah. And I think the Chase Brown guy is definitely a good trade partner as well, because Chase Brown too, even if you aren't ready to fully compete this year and Chase Brown has a good year, he's still young enough that, unlike Barkley, you kind of don't have to worry about him kind of falling off or whatever the case is. So feel pretty good about this team. I think you're in good shape. I think you have
the quarterbacks too.
Exactly. Yeah. Stick to BPA. Like you said, go for it next year. That's your backup plan. Stick to BPA,
Yep.
go for it next year is your backup plan, but kind of wait and see what opportunities present
Yep.
themselves to you, because that's kind of the way you want to go about it. So
Yes,
let's move
sir.
into Loku. And you guys can see we have a bunch of free submissions here. Loku specifically, the reason he was a free submission is because he signed up for an annual subscription on our site, and you get a free team review voucher when you sign up for an annual subscription. So definitely check that out
Code FSC.
down below in the in the pinned comment, code FSC to get that from us specifically. You can get that from every creator, but ours is the ones that get you on these episodes. Fear the A-Rich is the team that he got here.
Yes, sir.
Nobody's fearing A-Rich these days, but 10-team league, start 8, PPR, 2 quarterback, no tight end premium. So in a 2 quarterback 10-teamer, ideally, you'd like to have a better quarterback core than Kyler Murray, Justin Fields, and Anthony Richardson. Running back core, again, you got probably RBs 2 through 4 of a good team, but not probably RB1 of a good
Just
team.
missed out on Genty.
Yeah, you did just miss out on Genty, and maybe we'll talk about something along those lines in a second. Puka Nacua, JSN, T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, Debo. I think that's a decent enough core, especially in a start 8. You're going to probably hypothetically have Puka, JSN, T. Higgins, and Waddle in your lineup most weeks. And then non-tight end premium, but you do have TJ Hawkinson locking down your main tight end spot here. So again, I would imagine one of your main concerns is, hey, 102, what am I going to be doing with that? He didn't actually leave any official questions. Let me just double check the chat that he sends us beforehand. Maybe you're pulling that up on the back end right now.
No, what I was actually doing is plugging in a potential trade on the Flock Fantasy Calculator, which again, if you guys are members over on the site, we do have the free trade calculator mixed in there as well. So just kind of seeing what the valuation, I'm going to make a potential proposal in a second, but you're mentioning the back end. I'll let you get to that too.
Yeah, so on the back end, he said, my plan is to get one of the A-Rich or Fields quarterbacks. He's counting on one of them. He basically is what he said.
Yeah.
Again, a little bit of a sketchy proposal, but I will say if one of them does hit for you, like let's say Fields plays well enough to earn us another yeah, he would have great rushing upside. Richardson, if he takes a step forward, would have great rushing upside. And he said, I'm expecting to get some value at his 102 pick this year for his running backs. Either just stick and pick Amari and Hampton. Maybe he wants to, we'll talk about a potential trade up to 101 potentially here.
So when you go to the trade calculator and you search it by expert, search it by dynasty, obviously put in your own league settings. If it's a start 9, if it's a start 11, obviously that's fully customizable if you're a member on the site. But I'd be encouraged. Now, can you go to the team with the 101 here just so we can kind of get an idea of where his team's kind of at?
Yeah, let's see. It's probably this guy. Yeah, this guy has the 101. So I mean, he could definitely use Genty with his team.
Yeah, I think that would maybe be the issue that you run into, but I'd almost be willing to add a vet on top of the 102 in case it secures you that 101, because especially in a start 8, 10-team league, to me, Ashton Genty, even if you have to quote unquote overpay on a normal market on top of the 102, like I don't know how much it will cost for that guy specifically, because obviously he's ready to kind of turn his chips in and compete, but can you get it with Debo plus the 102? Can you get it with, I mean, would you even be willing to do Waddle plus the 102 given the format? Because I think I would.
Yeah, I think I would, given that it's a start 8, like you said, and like who knows, maybe you just ask for Mooney on the way back. Like how much are Mooney and Debo really going to be production wise that different this year anyways? Like I think you could definitely get through it on name value. Again, I'd be willing to maybe just stick and pick Amari and Hampton, especially if he does go in the first round to the Chargers or to the Broncos or something like that. Like I think you're going to be fine either just picking Amari and Hampton, Travis Hunter, Ted McMillan, whoever kind of is your best option there. But ideally, you do get a chance to get Genty because he would fit your team. He would probably complete your team. Like if you look at a redraft angle here, how many first, second, third round redraft assets do you have once Genty's on your roster? He's going to be a first round redraft pick. Puka Nacua is a first round redraft pick. JSN probably a second round redraft pick. Chase Brown, Chuba Hubbard, Higgins, Waddle, David Montgomery. Those are kind of round 3 through 6 redraft picks. TJ Hawkinson, a top 4 to 5 redraft tight end. Again, then you're just kind of really relying on Kyler, Justin Fields, Richardson, 2 of those guys to really be anchors for you.
Yeah, and I mean, on top of that, too, in a 10-team league, assuming that he's able to come back like fully healthy this year, because again, he came back last year, commanded volume, but we didn't really see that touchdown equity realized. I think TJ Hawkinson, assuming that he's coming into the year fully healthy, is in store for a big-time bounce-back year because he's the type of guy that's historically thrived on touchdowns, and he somehow scored 0 last year. I think that's due to regress positively.
Yeah, and one thing I would maybe consider doing, because this guy has so many quarterbacks, if for whatever reason he's really into Richardson or Fields, I wouldn't be opposed to doing 102 plus let's say he loves Richardson for 101 plus Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers or somebody that's just a depth quarterback for you, because realistically, Richardson / Fields is a really risky proposition anyways, and securing Genty would kind of circumvent that a little bit for you. Just pick your favorite one. Maybe he has a favorite of that group and you can kind of go on your merry way. And he has enough quarterbacks that he won't even care probably if he loses Aaron Rodgers or whatever.
And we can even go down, because what if that guy says, "Oh, I would want a running back back"? Luke, where would be your cutoff line? Would you do Chase Brown plus the 102, or would it more so be it'd have to be like a David Montgomery plus the 102?
I don't think I'd be willing to give up Chase. I'd probably want to do Montgomery.
That's where I'm
plus
at
the
as
102.
well.
I'd be okay going like 102 plus 209 plus, maybe he loves Deebo Samuel so much, or maybe he likes Adonai Mitchell, or, even David Montgomery. I'd probably be willing to do 102, 209 and David Montgomery for the 101, and maybe he'll throw you a piece back like Darnell Mooney or something like that.
Yeah, no, just kind of pick your poison here, kind of see where he's at. Obviously, like we said, the main thing that you should be taking away is in a 10-team start 8, depth does not matter. I'll tell you that right now. You just want to strengthen your starting lineup. And if Ashton Genty, even if the difference is a 3-4 point per game year-to-year projection, like let's just say Ashton Genty in his peak years is a 22, 23 point per game scorer. And as much as I love Omarion Hampton, he's more of that 18.5 to 20 point per game scorer. In this format specifically, I'd be willing to quote unquote overpay to get that.
Yeah, let's say Omar Hampton has Joe Mixon's career versus Genty has Alvin Kamara's career. You're going to take the peak Kamara years over the peak Joe Mixon years.
And I love both.
And I love both of them too. And they obviously both peaked as like top 5 dynasty running backs in their prime. But Kamara was more untouchable than Mixon for sure. And he had a couple legendary seasons.
Yeah, more so, man. I love both Omarion Hampton and Genty, but it is worth it.
Yeah, exactly. So again, that's the main thing for us. Unlike the other team, I probably wouldn't be just selling my 26-1 willy-nilly, because again, it's a 10-team league. It's going to be a more valuable pick. Plus, there's no guarantee that a couple of injuries here and there, you're going to, really kind of kill yourself on that pick there. And you don't want that to be the case there. So feel good about this team. I think we could probably move on to the next one, which is from Brockodile, who was in our stream. He was in our stream yesterday. So this was a free, review that we were able to give him as a voucher. And again, we're going to give away a couple for the next episode that we're able to do. So comment your Flock username down below in the pinned comment. Also, we didn't mention this, but you do have to be a code FSE user for us to grant you a voucher. So if you use domain, land, or Flock, we cannot unfortunately grant you vouchers for that, but I suppose you could make another account if you wanted to do that. So Brockodile, the Straw Hats is the name of his team here. Doesn't look like he has a very good running back core again, but he does have great wide receivers, great quarterback. It is a 2-quarterback, 12-team start 10 PPR.
You can tell he's watched FSC.
He has,
based off the players.
Yeah, he has a very, very, very strongly built up quarterback core, very strongly built up wide receiver core. Basically got all of his wide receivers in last year's class, and thank God he did, because look at the receivers he ended up with.
Yeah, I mean, this team has the makings to potentially become a juggernaut, but of course we'll lay out some moves in a second. But yeah, no, shout out Brock. Obviously, I believe it's the Flocked Up or the Flock Me Silly. He's in one of those 2 leagues.
I think he's in Flocked Up. Yeah, this isn't the Flocked Up league, but he is in a league with us. So 12 teams start 10. Like he says, all the scoring formats there. He does want to transition into competing, like he said, which he also doesn't want to rush it, which, like you said, he kind of is following our advice on that. Thinking of building up the running backs through the draft with the 104 and 3 second-rounders, third-year, second rookie draft, looking for targets and trade away guys. And he said he feels like the league overvalues picks. So that's definitely good to know.
For you.
Yeah, and knowing that maybe you could, especially with those 2s, if you're looking to transition into a competitive team and your league overvalues picks, well, you might actually get some really productive running backs if you're willing to do that. Now, that might not be the right move for you because you have some young quarterbacks, some young wide receivers, but if they're going to come cheap, man, you can get some really good production pieces for early to mid seconds like you have there. That would be viable for sure.
I would, the one move that does glare out to me right now is how much on top of the 204 to get you more in that 111 to 201 range. Because ideally, if I can add one of the top 2 tight ends in this class on this team, especially, and maybe in a 0.75 PPR, they're not even there, or tight end premium, they're not even there. But that would just mean that one of the top end wide receivers or running backs fell. So I would be curious how much extra on top of the 204 to get you to that 111, 112 area. Would you be willing to go the 204 and the 207 to get there?
I think I would be, because I think Warren and Loveland, or like you said, one of the running backs or wide receivers falling there would go a long way for this team, because There was once a time where we really appreciated what Kyle Pitts was able to do, but
Yeah.
I don't think you can rely on him.
You
I
need
would
another
rather have
plan.
him. I would rather have him as my tight end 2 and Theo Johnson as my tight end 3 than have them as my 1 and 2.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it as well. Again, if you have, I won't say that it's completely written the book on those players with Pitts and Johnson, but if they're more so your upside tight end 2 and 3, like Corey was saying, and you can have a guy that you feel a lot better about, because at this point, I would be extremely shocked if either Warren or Loveland fell out of the top 25 picks in the NFL draft. And that type of team investment on those type of receiving profiles, like, they're almost a foregone conclusion going to be ranked consensus in the top 5 or 6 tight ends in Dynasty.
Yeah, they'll at least be higher than Pitts no matter what, pretty much. And you get a re-roll on the fact that Pitts hasn't really done it over a 4-year career so far. So again, your draft plan as of now would probably, if you do think that Pitts and Johnson, again, that would be a gamble for sure, like we just said. But if you do kind of believe that one of those tight ends will end up working out for you, and my opinion on tight ends usually is that, like, hey, worst case scenario, I could always trade pretty much nothing for like Dallas Goedert if I really needed a productive tight end or something like that. 104, 204, 205, and 207, like you kind of mentioned in your comment, you're going to probably be in a honeypot of running backs there, because you're going to get guaranteed one of those top dudes, whether it's Hampton, Judkins, Henderson, Caleb Johnson. There's a good chance that one of them will have a good enough landing spot that you're like, okay, yeah, fire me up, dude. Quinshon Judkins is the starting running back for the Cowboys, 44th overall, and I got him at 104 because Hampton went ahead of him, and Tet McMillan or Travis Hunter went ahead of him, or Cam Ward went ahead of him in this draft, or something like that.
Or we'll say in this instance, maybe Travis Hunter got drafted to a cornerback primary team and he kind of fell down the board, and the top 3 off the board respectively went Genty, Tet McMillan, and Omarion Hampton. Then, like, at that point, if you want to take Judkins, I'd be perfectly fine. He also has another first, I believe. If we go to Montequila, man.
Yeah, this guy has the best team in the league according to value. I'm not.
It's the quarterbacks.
It's just Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson realistically, and Jahmyr Gibbs that are his high end assets. So this guy's team's kind of a bit of a house of cards. If he had a couple injuries, he would probably be screwed. I would say it's probably projecting to be a mid pick at the moment, conservatively, but that could be early if Josh Allen misses some time or whatever. Like,
Lamar Jackson has a poop run and, like, gets hurt in practice or gets sick, because he always seems to do that. Like, come November time, like, is there always a report that Lamar Jackson misses practice with an illness? Like, I swear every year it happens.
Yeah, and not to mention, like, you and I have both experienced this as Dynasty players too. This guy might look at his own team and be like, my team's not really deep enough to compete this year. And maybe he wants to get ahead of it and try and buy his own first back. And you have his first. So you could maybe, try and sell it back to him, knowing that it's inherently going to be an early pick rather than maybe a mid pick as it projects right now, because he intends to sell off Terry McLaurin and some of his competitive assets or whatever. So wouldn't be totally against maybe making a move with this guy. Like, if he offered you James Cook plus one of his tight ends and something else for his own first back or something, that might be an interesting offer that you could field.
Yeah. I mean, just make sure you're selective. If he comes to you with an offer getting his own pick back, just say, well, there's a reason why you want your own pick back. You want to tank your own pick's value. And you can't do that if I have your own pick. So instead of coming to me and saying, hey, this is going to be a mid to late pick, it's like, well, no, technically speaking, if I give this back to you, you're going to do everything in your power to get this to the 102, 103. That is the biggest leverage point. If you have somebody else's pick, just say, well, the reason why you're reaching out to me is because you actually want to tank this own pick. So why would I give it to you at its current market value?
Yeah, there you go. That's negotiation leverage 101 in Dynasty right there. But again, worst case scenario here, just like the previous team we were talking about, like, you pretty much just address your, like, if you walk out of this rookie draft, Quinshon Judkins is your 104, 204, you grab Cam Scattaboo, 205, maybe one of the tight ends or, something falls to you. Worst case scenario, you're just grabbing another running back like an Ollie Gordon or a Byshell Tootin, Dylan Sampson, something like that. You walk out of this rookie draft with 3 running backs or 4 running backs potentially. You're going to be in a house money window as soon as this year. And you have a couple 22, 23-year-old wide receivers and quarterbacks here that you're going to be working with, like Neighbors, Thomas, Drake May. These guys are already really good, and they might not peak until 2026, 2027 when your team is looking like an absolute hammer.
These are the most fun teams to rebuild, is because, like, you got your cornerstone pieces, and at this point, it's just kind of like filling in the gaps for those guys. Because obviously, like, when you're in your competitive window, Neighbors, Thomas, Harrison, I mean, obviously to a lesser level, given their rookie seasons, Harrison and Adunze, by the time that you're, like, fully on the top of this league, those guys are going to be hitting their prime. They're going to be between, like, 18 point per game to 23 point per game level scorers. Those quarterbacks particularly, obviously you have all guys that are either big or extremely mobile. Obviously, Kyler Murray more of a rushing threat. Drake May and Justin Herbert obviously rushing threats to a degree, but obviously those big arm talented quarterbacks in improving situations. Specifically, Drake May kind of doing a little bit both on that end, which is why I love Drake May so much. But I mean, I can glaze your team as much as I want because realistically, it's just a team that has a ton of my guys. But ultimately, you're in a good spot. Obviously, you have a good head on your shoulders. You've been following us for a while, and hence why you have a good team in the league that we are in together.
Yeah. Last thing I would say is maybe because you have 3 top 10 quarterbacks in Dynasty, you could maybe transition one of them down a little bit. Justin Herbert down to like maybe you wanted to tier down to like a Michael Penix or a Bryce Young from Justin Herbert, and you could pick up some juice on top of it. You could definitely consider doing that.
I do have a question for you. So go to maybe like the teams at the bottom of the value that need quarterback. And I am curious. So
this guy only has Lawrence and Stafford. Maybe you could, I mean, I don't know why he would trade you Lawrence in a package deal like that.
I'm not specifically talking about buying another quarterback. I'm more specifically talking about, can you buy a running back similar value to like a Herbert and get like a QB3 on it? Like, can you go, like, obviously, like you'd have to throw a piece back, but let's just say that Bijan guy, go up to the
this guy is Bucky, and he only has Jordan Love as his only real quarterback here.
The only issue is you're not really getting another like QB3 back there. Go back to the Bijan team specifically, because I am curious. So it depends. He might think he's competing. That might be the only issue with trying to deal with him. But if you were able to make a move of like Bijan plus Tua, and you gave up Justin Herbert plus like a solid piece back, like first round type of capital, do you think that would move the needle for a guy like this? Again, it depends because his team kind of looks like he's trying to compete, which would be my only issue. But that type of structure of offer, because it's not just exclusive to Bijan.
Yeah, for sure. And again, this guy, if he had a better quarterback option, maybe you could get Bucky off of him or something like that. This guy, maybe you could get a Geno or a Rich back if you believe in either of those guys. I don't really love Kyron and some of the other running backs that he has there. This guy's Achane. Maybe you could get Darnold back.
That's the guy. That's the guy.
This is the guy right here. If you could somehow get Achane in a trade involving Justin Herbert, maybe he wants to just lock down his quarterback position and he'll throw you Achane and Goff or Achane and Darnold or something in a trade package involving Justin Herbert. Maybe you have to give up some juice on top of Justin Herbert to get that done. Yeah. That would be an interesting trade offer. Again, we're kind of just spitballing here because in an worst case scenario, you just have 3 really good quarterbacks. Yeah. But if you're able to kind of refunction and reorganize your assets, I did a deal like this a couple of weeks ago where I sold off Michael Penix for the 106 because I'm like, I already have Trevor Lawrence, Drake May, and Bo Nix. Like, I don't really need Michael Penix.
Makes me sick in the Flock Me Silly League. And now I'm getting offered like 2nd round picks for Michael Penix. I'm like, buddy, like what happened to all the the 106 for Penix offers or the 401 in the recent startup valuation of Penix? No, I'm just getting bottom of the barrel Penix because people know I don't like him.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Next team we have here is from Jordan, who was in our mock draft yesterday and got this review as a result. Gink for Prez is what it looks like his team is.
One quarterback league.
One quarterback league. So Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, you are set there. And even Justin Fields could be a valuable asset for you. Little bit of a kind of a house money-ish kind of team, I would say, but you do have some competitive assets. Chuba Hubbard, James Conner, Tajay Spears. Again, if you had one hammer at this running back core, it'd be ready to compete. Wide receiver-wise, I mean, having St. Brown, McConkey, Rasheed Rice, J-Mo, all those guys, definitely loaded at that position. Little sketchy at the tight end position, but you do have Danny's guy. Bretton Strange is Danny's guy here. So he's your, I actually feel okay about this tight end core. Like I'm comfortable with a tight end core like this because I don't really give a shit about this position, but a lot of people might consider that a weaker core.
Start 8. Maybe I try to venture to get a guy with maybe a little bit more upside, I would say, than Dalton Kincaid. But like, I don't necessarily think it's like a pressing move that you would have to make before the season. But I mean, who knows? If 202 comes and Colson Loveland somehow still on the board, maybe you make that addition to your team. The one thing that is glaring out to me, I mean, it feels like I'm going to make all can you take the 102 and transition up to the 101 suggestions? But specifically for this team, I mean, can we see the guy with the 101? Because I'd almost be willing to go JMO plus the 102 to get the 101.
Yeah, it's actually funny because I traded 2 years ago. I traded JMO plus the 112 and the 202 or something to go get Bijan, which in hindsight was a completely horrible move for the guy. But it's funny. I did a JMO plus something to get the 101 at one point in time. This guy is the 101.
Maybe I don't know. This kind of receiver.
This seems like a kind of Delulu manager type of team where he might be like, dude, I could compete with Ash and Genty. Like I could see somebody thinking that they're going to be a competitive team once they get Genty on their team with this one.
That's a good point. Maybe can you go to like the 10, 11, 12 range too? Because I kind of want to see if they have maybe like an anchor running back that is kind of wasting away.
Mixon, Tracy,
Uh,
Jacobs, maybe.
so
Henry.
the teams at the bottom here are just kind of ass. I see.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's a team that's got a little bit more pick capital. Like this guy maybe doesn't think he's in a competitive window yet. Chase Brown and Bucky Irving would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean he does have Kamara Metcalf though, so maybe he's going to try to compete again. Yeah,
Yeah.
although I mean those quarterback core is just dreadful.
This guy's Gibbs.
Yeah, if you can negotiate something that is Gibbs for 102 plus Jameson Williams or something like that, if that's available. Again, obviously, again, people might be watching this. Oh, Gibbs is untouchable for that price. It's like every league has different type of market values, and if somebody is willing to say, you know what, I like the young aspect of Jameson Williams, 1,000-yard wide receiver last year, one of the most efficient wide receivers in the league, and I think he's going to be perfectly fine even without Ben Johnson. We don't necessarily know how certain people think. Plus, I mean, if they see the 102 back and they think I can add a Ted McMillan or I love Omar in Hampton, he's going to go top 15 in the draft, they may be more willing to make that type of dude. But again, it never hurts to inquire on those type of running backs, especially when you're in the situation you are, where if you get one of those like really, really elite anchor top 3 guys, I think this team can really make some damage this year.
Yeah, let's go back up to his questions here. He said they added IDP players to the rookie draft. So again,
1 year too.
Not really. Yeah. Looking to bulletproof the team, as in make it just an absolute juggernaut. He said he traded this offseason Ramondre Stevenson for 201, Tyrone Tracy, and 212. How the hell did you do that, dude? I would literally take
Tracy straight up.
I would take Tracy straight up. I would take the 201 straight up easily for Ramondre Stevenson. You could even maybe get there on 212 for Ramondre Stevenson right now.
Wait, so I'm confused. So Ramondre for 201. Oh,
no, sorry.
It's Ramondre.
Tracy and is it Ramondre for 201 and then Tracy and 212 for Connor and 207? I think that's what it is.
That's what it is. Okay, so Ramondre for 201, I would take the 201 there. So I think that's a good value for you. Tracy and the 212 for Connor and the 207, I wouldn't have done.
I think that's a fair assessment to me. I'm not as high on Tracy as you are, but I would say Connor plus the 207 is decent.
I'd just rather have Tracy more than I would rather have the 5 pick bump.
Yeah, it's also a 1 quarterback league too, so it's probably not as valuable as a 5 pick bump. Again, that's probably a wash, give or take. Maybe you prefer the Tracy side like Danny there. And then he said 112, 201, and 207 for Hill, 110 and 410. So I think, does he have those picks or does he have Hill? He has Hill. So, okay. So he ended up selling off that stuff for Tyreek. So 112.
It looks like he had Gibbs. So maybe that's not the direction he goes then.
Yeah. 112, 201, and 207 for Hill, 110 and 410. I mean, I think that's probably a fair move, give or take. Like, you didn't have to give up that much for Tyreek. Gibbs in 110 for DJ, Chuba 102 and 202. So DJ Moore 102, 202.
I wouldn't have done that.
Gibbs and I might have just kept Gibbs in that situation, to be honest. But you got good pick value out of it. 102 is going to be a great player. Chuba is a good competitive running back for you. DJ Moore, a good competitive wide receiver for you. But in a start 8, those assets don't move the needle as much as Gibbs. That's kind of what it all comes down to.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that obviously you sold Gibbs, and the first thing that we said on this team was if you can buy one of the anchor top 3 running backs, you'd be golden. But you literally sold one of them.
Yeah, I maybe his rationale here too could have been I have St. Brown, Jameson Williams, and Gibbs all on the same team. He might have just been like, hey, maybe it would have been nice to get rid of some of these Detroit Lions, but I probably would have sold J-Mo in that situation, not Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I mean, even if you are not able to make a move up for one of the top, 3 running backs, Genty, Bijan, and Jahmyr Gibbs, at the same time, it's like if Amari Hampton gets elite draft capital, top 20, top 15 level draft capital, I'm more than willing to take him at the 102. I understand, like on a face market value standpoint, I would prefer Ted McMillan. But if Omar and Hampton had that level of NFL draft, I do think it would close the gap enough to the point where it'd be a personal preference thing. If you need a running back, I'm totally cool with it.
Yeah. I think redistribution of assets wise, you were able to pick up Chuba Hubbard in that deal, which is solid. He's going to be an RB2, RB3 for you if you're able to transition this into a competitive team. At 102, like you said, we're going to be able to get a good running back there. 202, even in a 1 quarterback league, you should still be able to address that position if you want to, because your wide receiver core is pretty much set. Your quarterback core is set. I mean, Daniels, Caleb Williams, you're going to be set for 10 years with those guys. Tight end wise, maybe at 202, you have a tight end fall to you. Again, it's a one quarterback start, 8 non-tight end premium. So maybe Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren will be there for you. And if you added Colston Loveland to this tight end core, suddenly it looks a lot better. So if you walked out of this rookie draft with Amar Hampton and Colston Loveland, I'd feel pretty good about this team's ability to compete. Maybe more so a 2026 competitive window because Rice coming off of an injury, you got a couple young quarterbacks still, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily like, even if you are unable to move up for one of the top 3 backs and you use your picks respectively, I would be curious to see what type of running back you can get on the market for Jameson Williams, because in the start 8, you do have what was that, like 10 usable wide receivers?
Yeah, I mean, JMO, because you already have St. Brown and because the Ben Johnson of it all maybe impacts the efficiency, selling off Jameson Williams, if that gets you anywhere, let me name some running backs.
Chase Brown?
Chase Brown was the guy that I was going to come up with. You already have Chuba Hubbard on your team, but Chase Brown, James Cook, I mean, I doubt you'll get quite to Bucky Irving or Jonathan Taylor guys, but I would say Chase Brown, James Cook territory of running back, maybe Josh Jacobs territory of running back would be doable for Jameson Williams.
Yeah, around there. If you can just get a guy that you can kind of productively slot into your lineup as a top 12 to 15 running back this year, I do think this team has enough juice. Like you said, you won the league in year 2 to potentially defend that title.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we can move on to the next team, which is from Ronaldo. The team that we got that dog in him.
Yeah.
Third ranked team in the league. Another no running back team of the video. However,
I wonder what the theme is.
Yeah. However, he does have the 101 and the 103 and the 201 and the 203 and the 210 and the 301 and the 307 and the 408. This one is a 2 quarterback league, 12 team, start 9, half PPR, half tight end premium. You guys can see the team on the screen there. So a little weaker in terms of the built up capital or built up assets of players, but you do have the pick capital to be able to supplement. I mean, you walk out of this rookie draft with both Genty and Hampton, or Genty and McMillan, or Genty and Hunter if he plays wide receiver, something like that. That's going to add some stud factor to your running back and your wide receiver core. Call me crazy. I'm actually personally fine with that tight end group. I'm totally cool with likely Freiermuth, Mayer, those type of guys, because I still think we're going to get some one of those guys emerging as a viable every week starter for you between likely Freiermuth and if Mayer gets traded, potentially Strange even too at the bottom there. I might have to move him up my rankings because I believe this is going off of my rankings right now.
100%.
It is. Yeah, I haven't updated it since the Ingram situation because Strange is just not in my mind.
I knew right away once I saw CD Lamb at 4 and I just thought blasphemy. I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly. But this is a good class to have a lot of 2s in, and you have a couple really valuable 2s, 201, 203. You're going to be able to walk away. If you do want to add a Tyler Warren or a Colston Loveland, you probably get one of those guys, I would imagine. Worst case scenario, you're looking at maybe Matthew Golden slides to that 201. Maybe you're able to get other wide receiver options like a Jaden Higgins with great draft capital, maybe a Cam Scatterbu gets great draft capital. Just by sheer numbers, like how many mocks, Danny, have we done where 201 ends up being those tight ends or Golden or even Caleb Johnson, if he slides to like the 3rd round, potentially would slide to you there at the 201. You're going to be able to add some great assets to this team with the pick capital that you have.
Yeah, you're in a situation where it's almost a luxury. Now, it is a half PPR. We do keep that in mind. So I will say, assuming Tet McMillan goes off the board at 2 and Travis Hunter is announced as a part-time wide receiver or cornerback first, like you're going to be leaving that draft with Genty and Omari and Hampton and feeling great about it. And you add those two Najee, obviously Jalen Wright handcuffed with some upside. Jordan Mason obviously gets traded this offseason. A guy like, I don't really know how much Sean Tucker is going to mix into the equation, but we saw a couple of usage weeks last year. I think you have the shell of the running back core. You just need the top 2 headliners, which are in a position to add this offseason. Then, I mean, we could talk about obviously my guy at quarterback there, Drake May. Brock Purdy is a solid quarterback 2. Justin Fields, fine quarterback 3. That is an ideal quarterback core to be able to build out. And on top of that, you have juice at the top with Brian Thomas Jr. and Drake London, but you also have a couple, proven depth guys there with Waddle, with Deebo Samuel, and you have kind of an upside guy with Coker. But I definitely do think if you add maybe one more mid-range wide receiver, 18 to 25 area type of wide receiver to this team and start 9, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, like imagine you walk out of this rookie class with Genty and Hampton, who both end up being top 5 dynasty running backs this time next year. And at 201, 203, you hit on Jaden Higgins, who went to the Raiders and became a top 20 dynasty receiver because he had a good rookie season or whatever. Yeah. Like that would be you'd be in a great spot there. He did mention in the chat that he's currently rebuilding in year 3 of this league, 2 years of being at the bottom. Obviously got the 101 this year as a result. And he said looking to compete this upcoming season and definitely by 2026 if his rookie picks hit. And I think that's the proper assessment of your team. You're going to be a house money team after adding all these rookies, presumably, to this roster. Who knows? Maybe you can compete this year and maybe you get out to a nice start because Genty's just absolutely tearing the NFL a new ass and Hampton hits. He's the Broncos starting running back or whatever. You're going to be able to probably compete this year. But worst case scenario, like you said, 2026 is probably your first real competitive window.
Yeah, you nailed it down. Perfect self-assessment. And like we kind of mentioned, you're in a good spot here, assuming you had those 2 running backs to potentially, not push it in this year, but house money your way. See if you're 4-1, you're 5-1. And obviously you still have a lot of future pick liquidity with your own 1, an extra 2 next year. You don't have your 3, but I would obviously much rather have an extra 2 than not having my own 3, right?
Yeah, and again, some people, when they get themselves into this position, they're ready to just sell their picks for Joe Mixon and Derrick Henry or whatever. And like, you could do that, I suppose, but it probably immediately puts you in a competitive window where you need to win instead of if you hit on those picks and you trust your ability to draft, you can be a dominant monster for the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, and the one comparison I'll make, it's funny that you mentioned it in that frame. I'm not sure. Obviously, we're a football channel. We're specifically talking about fantasy football, but for those of you that watch hockey, Habs GM Kent Hughes was basically asked, "Oh, do you want to make a big free agency signing this offseason?" He said, "Well, I don't want it to come at the expense of my young team. I don't want to hand out 8 years, overpay an outside free agent, and now that cap flexibility in the future from my young team when I want to contend isn't necessarily there." I do think that principle applies to fantasy, to dynasty specifically as well, because when you have a young team that kind of all fits the same window, and you try to maybe get over aggressive, maybe overpay for a vet that has a shorter shelf life, all it does in the future is inhibit your true contending potential, is how I put it.
Yeah, especially from a dynasty lens. Like, yeah, you could sell the 201 for Joe Mixon or Derrick Henry, but if you hit on a running back at the 201, he's going to be way more valuable than those guys, especially for the next 5-6 years, not just the next 1 to 2 years. So we can move on to Connor Seed, last team that we're going to break down here. We go up to the top here. He is the May Queen, which the number 1 team in the league based on value. And again, this is a free feature. If you guys are, I don't want to pay for the site, but this is a cool feature, the My Teams feature is free. To get our specific rankings, because these are based on my rankings right now, then you do have to, be a site subscriber. And obviously those rankings get updated constantly, but you will get expert rankings used for the free feature.
Sorry, I have an actual quote from Kent Hughes himself about spending on an outside free agent. "We don't want to spend like a drunken sailor," is what came out of his mouth. And I mean, in Dynasty, you don't want to spend like a drunken sailor and pay a 1st-round pick for Derrick Henry. Sorry, I wanted to add that.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. The May Queen got Drake May, of course, on the team as a result. Lamar Jackson is his other quarterback. You're pretty much locked in with those 2 guys, Zay Flowers, Odunze, Worthy, Addison. Again, maybe lacking a hammer, but a good receiver core nonetheless. Decent tight end core. I'd be comfortable with Tucker Kraft, Freiermuth, and Dolchich. Running back core, probably missing your 1 and your 2, but I think that's good depth that you've built out. 105, 108, 111, 301, also has an extra 1 and 2 in 2026 as well. Let me just double check to see if he added some additional questions. Doesn't look like he did, but he does have some stuff at the top here. He said the team I feel strangest about, really only have 1 truly proven elite guy. Lamar, I'm assuming, is who he's talking about. And he said he traded JJ McCarthy 101 and 110 for Lamar Jackson. So that's a pretty steep price to pay. You gave up Genty, presumably a Caleb Johnson type or a Matthew Golden type, and JJ McCarthy for Lamar Jackson. But he said he also has a lot of young, talented guys. He said irrationally high on Drake May and Rome Odunze, as is Danny, so he'll understand that. And any advice would help. Trade ideas, direction, whatever. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable price. Obviously, you're paying for what's a consensus top 2, top 3 overall startup pick. So as much as I love Genty probably more of a mid 2 in terms of the typical startup valuation. You're looking at it. Would you trade down from the 102 for the 205? Let's say JJ McCarthy. I mean, we can literally see where he went in the startup. I believe he was a late 4th, 411, 410.
Yeah, I think 407 or 408, I think is where he went.
205, 410, and I think I took the 110 at, I believe, the 612. So you're looking at it 205, 410 plus the 612 to get to the 103, 102 area. I think that's a perfectly fine package. It is a start 11, so maybe you're like, shoot, I lost some depth there. It's Lamar Jackson. He's going to give you 22, 23 plus points per game this year. So I'm perfectly fine with it. And on top of that, now you have the clear best quarterback core there with Lamar Jackson and Drake May. And you still have a lot of picks to be able to rebuild from a depth perspective after losing, the 101, the 110 respectively in that deal.
Yeah, because we talk about like, trust your ability to draft, collect picks and all that stuff. But like when an opportunity to strike on an elite asset happens, like, and it's not going to break your back as far as your ability to fill out your depth, then it's definitely viable. Because like you could have hypothetically kept JJ McCarthy, kept Ashton Genty, or the pick that'll become Ashton Genty, and kept the 110 and been like, yeah, I'm going to trust my ability to get 4 or 5 really good players with the 101, with the 105, with the 108, with the 111, and with the 110. I'm going to probably walk away with some Genty, Egbuka, Golden, Caleb Johnson combo where they're all going to be contributing players for my team. But there's a very good chance that none of them will ever be Lamar Jackson. So that's kind of the trade-off that you made in your mind there. And you still have the requisite pick capital to be able to continue to build this team. This is also, I'm curious what bad luck for Nees' picks and team looks like, because you do have his first and second next year. And his team, couple injuries, and this could be a mid to early potential pick, but I would say looks like he's in a competitive window, and it's probably a mid to late pick at this very moment.
Yeah, and I do think strategically, you taking basically all the point equity off of his team while having his first round pick was a sharp move, because, I mean, as much as I like JJ McCarthy, JJ McCarthy, Tua Tagovailoa, maybe we could see a production standpoint, solid core. Lamar Jackson automatically was going to give this guy probably a mid-first type of floor with a high or a low first type of ceiling. But taking that off of his team now, we still have a lot more unknown at quarterback. Yes, he'll be adding Ashton Genty, but the other running backs he has respectively are aging. And I mean, Kenneth Walker and Jonathan Taylor have not been the cleanest bills of health as of recent years. So you can convince me that this pick ends up even in the 103, 104 range.
Yeah, I would say given where the assets that he has are going in redraft, it's probably more likely that it's like 107 to 110, but there's definitely a chance that
would be the upside scenario for you having his pick, is basically what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I think this team is pretty well built. You still have some work to do. You got to fill out the depth of your team and hopefully hit big on some of these picks. Like, because last year, for example, you might have been like, oh, the 111 asset, how likely are you to get a top 5 dynasty receiver? It's like, well, if you took Brian Thomas Jr., you got a top 5 dynasty receiver. So there is instances where, like, let's say at 108, you take a Emeka Egbuka, he goes for 1,300 yards on the Denver Broncos next year. Like, he's probably wide receiver 7 or 8 in dynasty. And suddenly you just turn that 108 into a really, really productive asset, a really, really good asset for you. So again, hitting on your picks, like you said, is going to be the big time move that you're going to make as far as like trades and that kind of thing. Again, if the iron is hot and you can strike on it, definitely do it. But I would be more in the business, now that you have Lamar and Drake May, of filling out the rest of your team, trying to hit on your picks, trying to collect more, ideally, if you can, because you don't have a second. Maybe at 111, you don't really see a huge difference between that 111 and the 206, and someone's willing to give you 201 and 203 for the 111. You could always trade down and maneuver the board that way. Plus, you have 2 1s next year. That gives you some flexibility. So you're in decent shape. If you hit on your picks, you'll be a house money team this year. I doubt you'll be really, really competitive this year, but you could be a house money team this year, ready to compete in 26.
Yep, absolutely. We're on the same page there. I do think you built out a really strong shell for this team, especially with the liquidity you have banked up.
Yep, absolutely. So again, we are going to sign out of here. If you guys do appreciate the new format, again, feel free to let us know your comments down below. We're probably not going back to the old format. It's a lot more work for us on the back end. It's more work for you guys as well. You have to fill out that form. You have to, give your comments and all this stuff. The My Teams feature, totally free to use. You just need to make a free account. I actually don't even know if you need an account off the top of my head. If you just use the My Teams feature, you can see how our expert rankings stack up your team. If you are a site subscriber, you can see specifically how I would rank your team, specifically how Danny would rank your team, Mason would rank your team, whatever expert you would actually choose over there. And again, if you guys do want potentially a chance to get a free team review, leave down below in the comments your Flock username, whether it's a free account, a paid account, whatever. And tell us how long you've been waiting, even specifically for a Dynasty Decisions breakdown. Maybe you've been waiting since 2023. You've been submitting free submissions. You've never gotten broken down on the channel. we're very likely to probably give you a team review voucher if you've been waiting that long. So definitely leave that down below. And again, if you're thinking maybe, oh, these are all going to be paid submissions going forward, I would actually argue you're going to get more free submissions now than you were getting before, because people could submit multiple times. Like we'd have guys, Chan Hughes or Brian Harris or AJ, like they were on episodes all the time. They were on episodes all the time because they were site subscribers. Now we're going to get a little bit more variety here. So really appreciate you guys for sticking with us. This new format may be a couple episode transition, but I think ultimately we were able to give people better advice. Go look at what team had this player and give them trade package opportunities. Like, I think that's way more valuable than us just saying, who has Jahmyr Gibbs? Go get him.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah. So appreciate you guys. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe. Flockfantasy.com for all the bonus content. With that being said, peace out. We'll talk to you soon.